While my husband was away on business, my 19-year-old son, Adam, opened up about his feelings for me. My tumultuous and bewildering emotions led me to cross a boundary. Even with my spouse back, I found myself still nurturing our bond. I stand at a crossroads, feeling unsure about the direction I should take next. It was a peaceful Friday when I found myself caught up in the most intense and exhilarating night I had ever lived. As I lay on my back, I found myself staring at the soft glow of moonlight playing across the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and restlessness. Loneliness wrapped around me tightly as Mike was gone for another 2 months, and I found myself facing the days alone for 3 long weeks. The subtle creak of the door pierced the stillness, and in that moment, I understood I was not alone. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on the dark silhouette hovering in the entrance. I watched as my son, Adam, lingered in the shadows, his broad shoulders framed by the soft glow of the dim hallway light. I halted, one hand clutching the doorframe as though it were the sole anchor preventing me from toppling over. I murmured, "Mom," with a quiet hesitation. I shut my eyes, feeling a tightening sensation bloom in my chest as his words reverberated in my thoughts. "What do you think the problem is?" I inquired. I remained silent for a moment, my figure frozen in place, my shadow stretching across the room. After a while, I noticed him enter, his bare feet making soft thuds against the carpet. I noticed an unsettling quality to his movements, cautious and tinged with fear, that thickened the air in the room around us. Rest eluded me, I confessed, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. I glanced at the clock sitting on the nightstand. I heard the clock strike 2 a.m. I knew Adam well enough to understand that he wouldn't wake me from my sleep, unless something was seriously wrong. As I swung my legs over the bed, I felt a tightness in my chest, compelling me to draw him closer. I find myself wondering what is happening. I whispered my question. I hesitated once more before settling on the edge of the bed, my posture erect and my hands firmly clasped in my lap. I observed him for a moment, but he kept his gaze fixed on the ground, an unmistakable anxiety emanating from him. "I welcome you to share your thoughts with me, Adam," I whispered softly, knowing that my presence is guaranteed, no matter what happens. I inhaled shakily, my fingers twisting the hem of my t-shirt in a restless dance, finding it quite a challenge to articulate my thoughts. I realized in the end that I had been feeling something all along. I find myself wrapped in a strange feeling, unsure of what lies ahead. His remarks sent a chill of unease coursing through me, intensifying the turmoil already churning within. I leaned in slightly and kept my tone steady. How do they differ from each other? I looked into his eyes, feeling the intensity of his gaze probing mine, and it caught me off guard. I find myself thinking a lot about someone whose voice I would describe as faltering, a person who occupies my thoughts more than I anticipated, a figure that might surprise you. A brief wave of relief washed over me. I remember it clearly. A tale spun around a girl at school, a brief but intense crush. I found myself at a loss for how to proceed. I had always kept my feelings to myself, letting them build up inside me until they became too overwhelming to handle. I smiled and replied, "Very well. I wonder who it could be. Could it be someone I know from school?" I shook my head with a quick motion, my eyes falling once more. "Is it negative?" I heard him reply in a hushed tone. I realized that it wasn't someone from the school. As I gently pressed, an odd sense of dread began to creep into my chest. "Adam, I would love for you to share with me. No matter what challenges I face, I will find a solution." I inhaled deeply, my chest expanding and contracting as if I were trying to conjure courage. As I began to speak once more, a tremor laced my voice. "It's you, Mom," he finally said. "That has always been you." The word crashed over me like a tidal wave, leaving me gasping for air. For a brief moment, I found myself at a loss for words, my thoughts weaving into a tangled web of silence. I felt my thoughts racing, desperately trying to understand the weight of his words, but the impact left me feeling unsteady. "Adam," I began, my voice shaking. "What am I really trying to convey?" I rose suddenly, moving restlessly around the room like a caged creature, my fingers running through my hair, pulling at the strands as if I were trying to wrestle the words from my mind. "I understand what that statement means," I responded with remarkable speed. "I know how serious my actions are, but I just can't seem to stop this overwhelming urge. I put in the effort. I've put in so much effort to push it away and ignore it, but it just won't go away." I looked at him, my heart pounding so hard that I could hardly hear what he was saying. I really hope you can see how sincere this is, Adam. I halted, my voice shattering the silence. I feel like you truly understand my emotions. The feeling I have for you is something I've never felt with anyone else before. It goes beyond mere admiration or a passing crush. It goes much deeper than that. Adam, I whispered again, my voice trembling with feeling. I am your parent, and I believe that what you are feeling does not reflect love. I find it truly remarkable. It's love, I exclaimed, my voice thick with emotion. In my eyes, you are everything, Mom. I feel like you are the only person who has ever really understood me, the only one who has made me feel valued. How could this possibly not be love? I felt tears welling up in my eyes as I tried to understand what he was saying. I watched my son, my beloved child whom I had nurtured and cherished, express feelings that I struggled to understand. Even though I couldn't return the feelings, I felt a strange sensation rising inside me, a mix of emotions I was hesitant to admit. I realize now that I was completely oblivious to it. First, I believe I attempted to ignore it. I noticed Adam looking a bit confused. I find myself navigating a tumultuous sea of emotions right now, and maybe these feelings aren't as perplexing as they seem, I thought, he remarked. As he turned to meet my gaze, I noticed the shimmer in his eyes, heavy with unshed tears. His jaw was clenched tight, a determination that made my chest feel tight. I have never felt such certainty in my life before. I could see it clearly. In that moment, I could feel the undeniable pull he had towards me. Even though I wanted to recognize it, my duty as his mother forced me to look the other way. I reached out and placed my hand softly on his arm. Adam, I whispered softly, these emotions will fade away. I promise you they will become a reality. As I observe, clarity will emerge in my understanding. What will I do if they don't? I heard him murmur, his voice faltering. What if this is who I really am? What if this is the emotion I'm meant to embrace? I felt my throat tighten, leaving me momentarily without words. I couldn't provide the answer he was looking for. I felt completely lost, staring into the torment reflected in his eyes, unsure of how to bring him any solace. I found myself holding on to the hope that time would reveal the truth, believing that this moment wouldn't define who we are. On this journey, I am not alone. Finally, I discovered my voice, shaking but resolute. I will navigate this together with you, Adam. I felt his gaze on me for what seemed like an eternity, his eyes full of vulnerability, stirring a deep ache in my heart. I can't stand the idea of losing you, Mom, I whispered softly. I just can't stand the idea of losing you. I find it hard to believe that you will. I felt a surge of determination as I grasped his arm tightly. Regardless of what happens, I will always be here. Would you like to join me this evening? Perhaps it will bring me some comfort, I murmured as I returned to my reading. I watched as he nodded with deliberation and eased himself onto the bed. I drew him nearer, aware of an emotion I hadn't yet shared with him. I whispered good night, darling, and he met my eyes with a smile. The silence that followed felt weighty, but it wasn't too much to handle. I felt the silence enveloping us, thick with unspoken promises that were both fragile and sincere. As I shut my eyes, a glimmer of hope ignited within me, suggesting that I might endure this tempest, regardless of how insurmountable it seemed. Yet, deep down, I realized it was just the beginning of something much bigger. I knew a night like this would come around again, but I had a feeling it would end in a way I never expected. I sat in silence, feeling the weight of the moment, but I could sense that something greater was just around the corner. In a relationship as intricate as mine, love does not quietly diminish. I felt its insistence for recognition, but I had no idea what that recognition would actually mean for me. As the dawn broke after Adam's revelation, I felt the boundaries of reality begin to blur. The familiar silence of the house wrapped around me, a weight that felt nearly overwhelming. Every corner, every familiar object seemed to resonate with the unspoken tension that hung in the air between us. I tried to keep myself busy with household chores, believing that the steady beat of routine would help calm my restless spirit. While I folded the clothing, my hands trembled, and a storm of unanswered thoughts rushed through my mind. What did this really mean for me? For me? Is this meant for me? The sudden sound of a chair scraping across the kitchen floor caught me off guard. I lingered at the table, my gaze fixed on a bowl of cereal that appeared as unblemished as my coffee. My hair lay in disarray, and my eyes were veiled with exhaustion. I had not slept, and neither did I that morning. I took a deep breath and broke the silence that surrounded us. I gazed upward, my expression a mystery. Morning has arrived. My voice emerged in a raspy whisper. I poured another cup of coffee into my mug, the sound resonating in the quiet kitchen, almost too loud for the stillness enveloping me. I settled into the chair next to him at the table, and the distance between us felt both vast and strangely close. For a brief moment, silence wrapped around us like a soft blanket. The silence hung heavy around me, filled with everything we hadn't said. As I started to share the details of last night with Adam, he interrupted me. I truly meant every word I said. I could see the conviction in his voice, even as I noticed the turmoil flickering in his gaze. I won't pretend that I don't know about it. In a brief moment of calm, I closed my eyes, urging myself to welcome the quiet. I get where you're coming from, I said softly, but Adam, what you're going through is more than we can handle. I don't think this is something we should pursue. I reclined in my chair, my fingers clutching the edge of the table. What's holding me back? I inquired. I could hear a hint of irritation in his voice. Why does love have to follow rules and limitations? Isn't love meant to be limitless? I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to express what was on my mind. For me, love goes beyond just a feeling. I explained things to Adam. I find myself caught in the pursuit of what feels just and beneficial for everyone involved. Yet I can't shake the feeling that the words I'm expressing might lead to harm for us both. I averted my gaze, my jaw tightening with resolve. I didn't want to hurt you, he whispered gently. That is the absolute last thing I want. I understood, and I reached out, placing my hand softly on his across the table. I truly don't want to bring you any pain either. I know that is exactly why I have to be careful. I need to find a way to navigate through this. My fingers intertwined with his, and for a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of the boy he once was. The child who once held my hand tightly, trembling with fear and looking for comfort, now seemed like a distant memory as this moment played out in such sharp contrast. I felt his gaze upon me shift, and with it came a new weight. I wasn't sure I could move past this, he remarked. My heart raced as his voice barely reached me, a whisper that stirred emotions deep within. Tears welled up in my eyes, memories of you rushing in like a tide. I felt my fingers wrap around his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. All I ask for is that. The days that followed were filled with a whirlwind of awkward conversations and a strained attempt to maintain a sense of normalcy. I found myself wanting to preserve my solitude, often retreating to my room or lingering outside the house for what felt like hours. I convinced myself that this was the smartest thing to do. The expanse offered me a chance to delve into my feelings, yet I find myself longing for his presence. Everything had changed, even the easy bond we used to have. Ever since he confessed, I've found myself sharing the same bed with him every night. Yet, I felt a chasm growing between us as the sun dipped below the horizon, and the kitchen filled with the aroma of dinner in the making. Suddenly, I heard the unmistakable sound of the front door creaking open, followed by it shutting softly. I stepped into the kitchen, my hair soaked from the downpour. I felt his gaze linger on me for what seemed like an eternity, as if he were contemplating whether or not to say something. Hey there. I'm all about keeping things cheerful and bright. I arrived perfectly on cue. As the dinner hour draws near, I can feel the excitement building as the meal comes together. I hesitated before responding. I approached the counter and rested against it. With my arms folded, I finally confessed that I've been pondering. What was the core of this issue for me? I asked him about us and he replied. I could see a firm resolve in his eyes. As I thought back on what I had said that evening, I took a deep breath and prepared myself. In that moment, I realized the night he was referring to. Of course, I told Adam I thought we had reached an understanding. I recognize his interruption, and I'm not looking to get into a disagreement. I can't help but share this thought. I tilted my head and motioned for him to continue. I am wrestling with these emotions, trying to find a way to move through them. My words flowed gently but carried an undeniable strength. At that moment, I felt a sudden clarity wash over me. I want to cling to what we have together. Mom, no matter what happens, I would always pick you as my mother over the idea of being without you. Without a doubt. A wave of relief swept through me, but it was tinged with the sadness that hung in his voice. I promise you, Adam, I will always be by your side. I promised no matter what happens, I will always be there for you. I nodded, my lips forming a thin line. I hear him say he has a gentle voice, but honestly, I find it hard to believe that idea. I find it undeniably challenging. I moved closer and placed my hand on his arm. I noted softly that it would require patience. Yet, I possess great strength, and I am here to support myself in every possible manner. My gaze intertwined with theirs. For a fleeting moment, I felt the tension that had existed between us begin to fade away. "Thank you, Mom," I murmured gently. "I find this to hold significant value." I lingered in the kitchen, listening to the rain drumming relentlessly against the windows. After days of uncertainty, I felt a wave of reassurance wash over me, and I finally believed that we would be all right. Yet, I find that life has an uncanny way of entangling situations just when I think I have it all figured out. Just when I thought we had found a bit of peace, something unexpected happened, throwing a shadow over the fragile balance Adam and I had created. Our uneasy truce, though delicate, had somehow managed to last for a while. I noticed him making an effort to smile more, to laugh at my jokes, to share meals with me like he used to. I held on to those moments, telling myself that I was making progress. In the stillness of the night, as silence wrapped around the home and I sat alone with my thoughts, I could still feel the weight of his revelation lingering in the air. As I walked through the door after a long day at the office, I noticed Adam sitting in the living room. I lounged on the couch, my gaze fixed vacantly on the flickering screen of the television. I could hear the distant echoes of a laugh track from an old sitcom, reverberating oddly in the otherwise silent room. I glanced up as he stepped in, his expression a mystery to me. I settled beside him and asked, "Are you all right?" I noticed him give a slight shrug, clearly lost in thought. I was hesitant to express any particular thoughts. I chuckled quietly, but I could feel that the humor was missing from my voice. What thoughts slip away from me? I felt my stomach churn with unease. "I thought we were past this, Adam." "I'm trying," he said quickly. "I really am. Still, I find that the situation is anything but simple. I can't just dismiss or silence my feelings at will like flipping a switch." I realize my response was soft, and I don't expect to hear back from you. However, I know it's essential for me to keep putting in the effort for the benefit of us both. I pivoted to meet his eyes, my own gaze searching for connection. I often find myself pondering it. I was taken aback when he suddenly asked, his voice low, about our relationship. I can imagine a world where things unfold in a completely different way. I froze when he asked. I was taken aback when Adam spoke. I just wanted him to be honest with me. I insisted. My tone was more frantic than authoritative. "Please, I urge you to tell me the truth." I looked away, my thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. I found the truth to be quite challenging. Emotions swirled around me, creating a complex web that I found difficult to decipher. It definitely crossed my mind. How could I possibly hold back, given what he said? Yet, acknowledging those feelings even to myself felt like crossing a threshold from which I could never return. Despite everything I had thought before, I finally found the courage to confess, working hard to keep my voice steady. "What matters to me is that I take the right course of action. I find this to be inaccurate." I let out a weary sigh, my fingers threading through my hair in a moment of contemplation. "I get that you believe that, but what if it's not, Adam?" I jumped in. "I believe that with conviction there's simply no space for doubt." I find myself realizing that this conversation is simply not taking place. I felt his gaze on me, intense and filled with frustration and despair, as if his face was a canvas displaying his emotions. I finally confessed that I was terrified. Indeed, I found myself confessing, for this matter reaches far beyond just the two of us. I feel it encompasses everything I have built and all that I stand to lose. Yet, I realized I was misleading myself about the truth. Fear gripped me, but I realized it came from my own misguided worries. I felt a wave of uncertainty wash over me as I thought about sharing the feelings that had been stirring inside me for the past few days. I found myself grappling with a truth I was reluctant to face. I remained silent. I felt the overwhelming silence that followed. Finally, I lifted myself, my movements rigid and deliberate. I decided to go for a walk, heading toward the door. It was Adam. I started, but he was already gone. Time dragged on for me, each passing minute stretching into what felt like an endless expanse. I found a spot by the window, watching the world go by on the street below. As each second passed without Adam, my fear grew stronger. As I sat there, the clock ticking away, I suddenly heard the door creak open, the sound slicing through the stillness of the night. I rushed to the entrance. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I watched him step inside, drenched from the downpour. I wondered where Adam had been. I asked, feeling my voice tremble. I heard him say it simply as he walked. As I shook the water from my hair, I grabbed a towel from the bathroom and handed it to him. Please tell me your secrets. Indeed, I said gently to Adam. I can't help but think you've noticed that we've been sharing the same bed for the past few nights. I paused, silence enveloping the space as I contemplated my response. To my utter surprise, I heard him let out a soft chuckle. What are my nuances? I inquired. Indeed, I noticed that, he replied. Still, I told myself that what you did was intended to brighten my mood. Honestly, I feel adrift because of them. They bring me closer to my dreams. Yet, at the same time, I can't shake off this feeling of distance. I leaned forward and said, You are not lost. I'm navigating my path, and that's perfectly okay. This is my journey of growing up. I felt his gaze on me, a raw vulnerability reflected in his eyes, stirring a deep ache within my chest. I can't stand the idea of losing you, Mom, I said. The thought of losing you is unbearable for me. I will not allow that. I responded firmly. Regardless of what happens, I will always be there. I know this is destined to remain constant. I could feel my heart racing wildly within my chest, though he had no idea. I still hadn't shared my true feelings with him. Those touches weren't just for his pleasure, but came from a longing deep inside me. I decided firmly that he would no longer come between us. I felt a strong desire to share my thoughts and reveal the depths of my emotions to him. Please let me finish my thought, Adam. I said those touches weren't intended to bring you pleasure. I heard what he asked and I replied that I did it because I was experiencing something too. Indeed, I still feel a sensation within me, Adam. I found myself hesitating to share this with you. As your mother, it just feels inherently wrong. I find it almost surreal, the depth of my feelings for you. Still, I find myself unable to deny it. I lingered in silence for a moment, then leaned closer, my hand finding its way to his leg. I told Adam that this wasn't something we could go after. What about my father? I heard him murmur. We can. I held on to a secret that remained unspoken. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling as I noticed the flicker of uncertainty in his gaze. I leaned in, pressing my lips against his, savoring the moment, even if it was just for a brief instant. I knew that success was out of our grasp, and I could feel his doubt too. I slowly pulled away from him. I look forward to a restful night and to chatting tomorrow. I nodded in response, feeling the unspoken understanding between us, a tension that hung in the air, refusing to fade away. I made my way to the restroom, brushed my teeth, and readied myself for the night ahead. Slipping into my pajamas, I couldn't help but smile at him as he took care of his face at the sink. Recently, I've spent most of my time in bed. From that very first night of his confession, I found myself wrapped in his embrace. It felt only right for him to join me. Moments later, he stepped into the room, and just before he reached the bed, I pulled back the sheets, inviting him to climb in. The tension hung in the air. Just as I had said earlier, I thought it would be a good idea for us to take a moment to rest. I'll talk about everything tomorrow right before Dad gets back. Very well, I responded. I could tell he had given up on the idea that anything would happen, but I was far from ready to do the same. With a heavy heart, I turned off the night light and softly said, "Good night, my dear." I averted my gaze from him. "Sweet dreams, Mom," I replied. My thoughts swirled around in a chaotic rhythm. Moments seemed to stretch on forever. My mind was a whirlwind of confusion. In a fleeting moment, my foot brushed against his leg, a mix of intention and chance. I stood my ground, and before I knew it, I had pulled him nearer to me. I felt him seize my leg, so I turned around. I paused for a moment, but in the end, I let things happen as they would. My lips met theirs, and we ventured beyond that moment. I won't go into detail about what happened, but I let myself give in. In that fleeting moment, I could genuinely sense the rhythm of life coursing through me. Finally, I found the strength to release everything that had burdened my thoughts in the weeks that had passed. I closed my eyes and let the moment wrap around me. For the first time in what seemed like forever, I felt a surge of vitality flowing through me. I found that this was not incorrect. Everything felt clear and straightforward to me. I felt love, pure and simple, a devotion that was entirely genuine. I felt the kind of love that blossomed effortlessly between us. I have spent years immersed in care, trust, and understanding, and now I find myself on the brink of fresh beginnings. I clung to that belief throughout our time together, yet just as quickly as it started, it came to a stop. Maybe it was just too much for him to handle. As I watched Adam step back, a smile spread across his lips as he turned to look at me. I wonder if everything is all right, isn't it? I nodded in acknowledgement and made my way to the restroom. The weeks that followed felt effortless, like a soft wind nudging me along my path. I noticed that Adam seemed to be more relaxed. Still, I found myself in moments when the animosity between us bubbled back to the surface. With my father's return, I found myself drawn outdoors once more, reconnecting with friends and rekindling the passions I had set aside. Throughout the past year, I found myself exploring my routines, uncovering a sense of comfort in the simple daily tasks that moved my life ahead. Even though I truly wanted to believe in the possibility of our healing, I couldn't shake off the persistent echoes of our shared past. I felt an unseen thread binding us, a connection I couldn't fully evade. I still haven't told my husband about what happened. Neither Adam nor I have broached the subject. I feel lost, unsure of what to do next or what to think. What are my thoughts on this? I find myself excited to delve into the perspectives of those around me. I want to share this tale for a reason. What happened is hard to believe, but I can't deny it. The things that have happened are unchangeable, permanently marked in the timeline of my life.